So it's no real secret that I love skirmish games, and I love, well, gaming in general. Hence the name of the channel, Normal Guy Games. But what about other games, right? Because it is Other Games April. So let's talk a little bit about skirmish games. So when we're talking about skirmish games, right, you have, for instance, Necromunda. So this is Necromunda. This is the glut of books that I have for Necromunda. And this is only a couple of them. I do have more on my other shelf. But the thing is, right, you look at these, a lot of these are necessary to play because each of them have their own little mini mechanics you have to have, right? Then you have Kill Team. So I thought, oh, cool, core book compendium. That should be all I need. No, it's not. No. As always, more books, more stuff, gotta have it. And then there's White Dwarf, right? Because, of course, we're still not complete with all the Kill Team books and all the Necromunda books and all the Warcry books. And then you have games like Age of Sigmar, right? You have your General's Handbook, your core, your army books, supplements and stuff and things and dice and... and then there's 40K, the same thing as Age of Sigmar. You have your core books, your army books, your cards, your dice, all these things you have to have, right? You have to have these things. And the same thing with Warcry. I was hoping Warcry would be different. No, it's not. You have your core books, your tomes, your different supplements, and all of the different campaign books. But then again, right, you look at these, and even some of these games have expansions, the Stargrave and Frostgrave in particular. So, but the thing is, these games here are usually easier to approach, easier to get into, and require a lot less from your pocketbook and a lot less from your time as well. And look at Frostgrave, right? You only need the core book, but yeah, there's supplements for Frostgrave. The thing is, you don't need any of these. Everything you need to play the game is in the core book. I've got a lot of skirmish games. And why do I have so many skirmish games, you might ask?
Mind your business, that's all. Mind your business.
But really, the reason is I just love either going head-to-head or even cooperative with other players. I like to see their reactions, I like to see what they're going to do. I like the challenge and the competition because you never know who you're going to go up against or what they'll be able to, bring to the table. So I've recently started doing battle reports for solo games too. And that's something new to me, something I didn't think I would be doing is solo battle reports, but it's fun. It really is. I'm enjoying 5 leagues from the Borderlands. I'm going to try 5 parsecs from home. I mean, what you've seen on the table here is just a small part of the books that I own. I am an avid fan of miniature agnostic skirmish games. And the thing is, there are a lot of these games out there. Now, which one do you choose? Really, it depends on how you feel about it. Because there are skirmish games out there for everything you can imagine, from zombie apocalypse to games about a group of adventurers going into strange territories or into cursed lands or whatnot. Even getting some Hot Wheels cars together and gluing weapons to them and seeing what happens when you roll some dice and fire some rockets at each other. You really can just pick and choose and find whatever you want. The thing is, with a lot of Games Workshop skirmish games, don't get me wrong, I understand that Games Workshop is a business and they're out to make profit, and that's their thing, right? They make games and they sell them. Got it. The thing is, those games they quickly become a money sink, right? You don't have to have all of the different boxes of terrain. You don't have to have all of the different, factions and models and units or whatnot. But a lot of the time, and this happens to me too, a lot of the time we will focus on things that are going to be an exclusive, right? Something that you're not going to be able to get except for this one time. And Games Workshop is really, really good at exploiting that. You know, they'll come out with a box for Kill Team. Oh, look, there's a new box, there's new terrain. I have to have it. But really, the truth is you don't. And if you want to play skirmish games, you don't have to play all the new, fun, crazy Games Workshop games. There's a lot of stuff out there, like I've said, that you can have fun with. Take, for instance, games as simple as Veritwood, right? Veritwood is a very simple, very user-friendly and new player-friendly skirmish game. You have small war bands going against each other in a cursed forest. It's plain and simple. And then you have games like Frostgrave and Stargrave, and those two are a couple of my favorites, actually, because there's something that is, I don't know, just appealing to me about creating a wizard and sending that wizard out on excursion into a frozen wasteland and a frozen city to look for artifacts from a long bygone age, right? And then you can either solo it, co-op it, or you can go versus. And you can do all of these things, right? So, and you only need a couple of things to do so. You don't need a big box of terrain and books and models and all this stuff. You need a war band, some stuff to throw on a table. I mean, you don't even have to use actual terrain. You don't have to have buildings and trees and all these things. I just have them because I like them. I mean, that's just me. But more to the point, it is very simple to buy a game like this and to set it up and play. And you don't have to have the miniatures made for the game. Now, they do make miniatures for like Frostgrave and Stargrave, and I do own some of those. But the thing is, with games like Frostgrave and Stargrave and Reign in Hell and all of those games, you can use whatever you have on hand, right? Say if you play Dungeons and Dragons, you already have everything you need to play Frostgrave. If you play D&D and you have some miniatures, right? You can use pre-painted miniatures. You can use the WizKids figures that are pre-primed and just you throw a couple of coats of paint on it and you're good. The point is, sometimes it's good to try new things, and sometimes it's good to try something you didn't think that you would, play, right? So the reason why I got interested in Frostgrave in the first place is because of the fact that it's miniature agnostic, right? You don't have to have the models that come with everything. But if you look at something like, for instance, Necromunda, okay? Necromunda is nothing but bloat, and it's way worse than 40K, I think, at least in my opinion. I'm not a 40K expert, but I mean, if you look at what you have to play Necromunda, you have your rule book, you have your house book, you have your supplements, you got to have a special dice, you got to have the models, right? And if you go, what you see is what you get, or as they say, WYSIWYG, right? You have to have models with the proper weapons on them. Okay, so which means if you want to change gangers, you have to either rip the model apart and repaint it, or buy a new model and model it up and paint it up. The thing is, most groups are not going to make you do that. A lot of the time, as long as you're not at a tournament, you can just say, oh, well, this model has a needle rifle and this model has a grenade launcher. I mean, as long as you can keep track of it, it's fine. A lot of groups aren't going to bother with WYSIWYG. But the thing is, that's only a little bit of what you need to play the game, because on top of that, it's very terrain heavy. So you have to have lots of terrain ready. You have to have lots of stuff to hide behind, to move around, to, for cover, and or, it's just a lot. There's a lot to go into some of these games, right? And if you think about games like Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, right? I'm not saying they're bad games. Don't get me wrong. They're not bad games. I'm just saying that there is a way higher bar to get into those games than, for instance, getting into Frostgrave or Stargrave, or even a game like Oathmark, right? Oathmark is a an army game where you can throw armies on a table and throw down just like Warhammer, but you can use whatever models you want. And it's the same thing with games like one-page rules, right? You can download all the one-page rules stuff for free. You don't need to buy rule books. They will give you the rules. Say, hey, here are the rules. Play the game. Easy, simple enough. So the thing is, and the thing about OGA, Other Games April, is go try something new. Go try something that's not Games Workshop. Go try something that's not mainstream. I mean, there's always there are other big companies like Mantic Games, for instance. I personally have never had any experience with any of the Mantic stuff, but it looks good to me, and I've heard good things about it. So, for instance, right, if you're interested in playing a zombie game, right, you can get Last Days or County Road Z. Get a copy of Zombicide and use the miniatures and the tiles in Zombicide for those games. It would be simple enough to say, hey, this tile is a building, that tile is a building, here are some zombies, let's play a game, right? We have zombies. And if you have a copy of the D&D board games like Castle Ravenloft or Wrath of Ashardalon or Legend of Drizzt, you could use those for Frostgrave or 5 Leagues from the Borderlands. I mean, that would be simple enough. You pull all the miniatures out of the box, you throw them on the table with some, tiles and whatnot. Hey, look, you have a dungeon crawl and you can use 5 Leagues from the Borderlands for that dungeon crawl. I mean, that sounds simple enough to me. The games that I have played personally, I've played Frostgrave, I have played Stargrave, I have played 5 Leagues from the Borderlands, and I've already said, loads about that game. It's complicated, but it's a very, very good game. Complex, but good. All of these games are accessible. They're easy to get to the table. I played Gaslands once. I have played... Rangers of Shadowdeep is a good one, right? Rangers of Shadowdeep, you can actually play that solo or co-op, and it's you versus the enemies, or your friends versus the enemies. And you basically, I mean, Rangers of Shadowdeep is just like 5 Leagues from the Borderlands, so for a little less dynamic. Rangers of Shadowdeep, you have a campaign or a series of campaigns you play, missions, and the outcome, I mean, it depends on how well you do. So you play that series of missions and, it tells a story. Well, it's the same thing with like 5 Parsecs from Home or 5 Leagues from the Borderlands. You're telling a story, and however complex or dynamic or, how complicated you want to make this really depends on you. So, I mean, the bottom line is try something new, try something fun, try Stargrave, Frostgrave, try, actually one game that I have that I would love to try, but I don't necessarily have the models for yet is the Silver Bayonet. But the thing is, I've got plenty of fantasy models, I've got plenty of sci-fi models, I could cobble something together. I'm a perfectionist though, so I kind of want the Napoleonic miniatures for that particular game. But you don't have to. So, recommendations, right? Instead of me just rifling things off, how about we do this? We'll pick a genre, and I'll make a recommendation for each of those genres. Okay, so let's look at sci-fi, first off. If you want a more complex sci-fi game, I'd say go 5 Parsecs from Home. If you wanted a sci-fi game that's a little simpler and, a little more clean to get to the table, Stargrave. For fantasy, definitely a simpler game would be Frostgrave, but if you want something more complex, go 5 Leagues from the Borderlands. That will give you a complete campaign system with randomly generated events, just like 5 Parsecs from Home for sci-fi. For cyberpunk, I would say Reality's Edge would be a good one. It's a little complex, it's a little heavy, sort of. The book is pretty large. It's got a lot of rules, a lot of lore, but it will definitely work for a cyberpunk game. For zombie apocalypse games, I would suggest a simpler game would be Last Days by Ash Barker. I'm actually a big fan of Ashes, and I really like Last Days. It's a pretty cool game. But if you want something a little more complex, go with County Road Z. County Road Z is a zombie apocalypse game, but with base building mechanics in it too. So you can start up a base, build a base, recruit people. It's a really cool game and it's a very interesting concept. It's kind of like The Walking Dead meets a skirmish game, and I've done a review on the game for my channel as well. So there's that. And for miscellaneous games, right? Another good. I'd say another good quick game would be Space Station Zero, right? As kind of a runner-up there. Space Station Zero kind of is like Stargrave almost, but it's just got a dice mechanic that's different from everything else. It's a very interesting dice mechanic and a very interesting concept where you use D12s and you match either evens or odds, depending on what you're doing. You match evens up. Evens are your successes, and odds are the dice you throw out. It's kind of interesting, and not many games use a D12. I'm sort of interested to know if, in particular for Rain in Hell and for Space Station Zero, if they picked a D12 just because it's one of the least used dice out there. I mean, who knows? And I'd say if you're looking for a campaign style game with a lot less complexity, I would say Rangers of Shadow Deep is a good recommendation. It's a game that most definitely you play a series of games, a series of skirmishes across a campaign. And I have actually played this with some friends of mine, and they had a pretty good time. It's pretty simple, it's pretty quick, it plays very fast, and it uses sort of the same mechanics as Frostgrave and Stargrave. So I mean, that's kind of it. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about for the last video of April was skirmish games and recommendations for other games that you can play besides, the big names, the Kill Team, the Warcries, the Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar. And again, don't get me wrong, I love games like that. There is a time and a place for the crunch of Necromunda. There is definitely a time and a place for the simplicity of Kill Team and for the complexity of Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar. All of these games have their place, but the real point is go out there and play games. Do it. Do it. Do it. Go do it now. You're not doing it, you need to do it now. Go do it now. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, please subscribe, and share the channel around. Spread it around if you like the videos. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.